All right, hello everybody. Welcome to today's Easy Facility webinar. I am your host, Mike Metzger. Today's focus will mainly be the third part of our scheduling and commission tracking series. As a review, for anyone who missed the first two, the first part of the webinar, we mainly went through the schedule, how we operated, how we book on it, how we get attendance in here and packages, rentals. Those are the first two parts we discussed. If you need to listen back to those, head on over to easyfacility.com, go to the resources tab, and you can look back to all the webinars we have done in the past. Definitely advise taking a look at that. All right, but today we're mainly going to focus on the trainer payroll commission report and simply how when we book a training in or class or a lesson, whatever it might be for a trainer, let's say, how we're entering in the commission for them as well. All right, so really it comes down to the first part here. We have location and trainer setup. We'll click on the Fisherman's Gym in this case. And all the way down at the bottom here, we have some trainers entered in. So you have Brandon, Ken, Bobby, and Matt. So you have to enter your trainers in here first. Otherwise, they will not be on the schedule and we cannot book them and keep track of their commissions. Now, if we look at Brandon here at the top, right, any trainers you enter in, you'll initially put the name in, and you have these fields in here where you can track their commissions, whether it's by a percentage or a flat rate, whatever it might be. Now, for example, if for Brandon here, right, let's say I hit the edit pencil on the right, I'm now able to make these changes for him just down here next to his name. So for example, let's look at session hourly here. So if I put in 20 here, I'm saying, okay, for any session, no matter what it is, a training, a lesson, a class, any session Brandon completes on the calendar for 1 hour, no matter what it is, he will receive $20 from that payment, or from that booking, I should say. So the fields up here next to their names, these are very broad, and you can, by all means, go ahead and use them. But for those of you that are concerned about making sure the training Brandon completes is the correct amount compared to maybe what Ken or Bobby or Matt has, you have right here to the right of their names saying service specific. So you want to click on this pay coin underneath that. And what you'll now see in here is we can specify what Brandon will receive as far as his commissions based off the respective reservation types and packages, right? So for example, we look down here, we see saying personal training 1 hour, Brandon will receive $20 from that hour, right? And you see up here saying 60, 45, 30 minutes. Have those right up here to enter in as well. And then down here, private lesson, we put in, he gets $30 for 1 hour here. So if you need to specify what they receive for each class or each training, want to go into service specific, and then you have those options laid out here. All right, so we have training and a private lesson. Let's say we look here, let's say he also does personal training for 30 minutes. So I can enter this in here. And then on the right, maybe for an hour he gets 20, so maybe for a half hour he only gets $10. I could enter that into the 30-minute field. Now, instead of a flat rate, if I had to enter in a percentage for him to receive, we have on the right here session commission rate. So I could enter in a certain percentage here as well. I would advise you don't enter in both of these fields. The report will have a tough time entering that in and will not know what to choose, whether it's the percentage or the flat rate. Just simply choose one or the other. All right, but from here, I'll add in this rate. We have down below that he's getting $10 for a personal training session for 30 minutes. So we have that here. So the commissions are all set up. Jump back to administration as a reminder. Go to location trainer setup. You have your facility. And then simply at the bottom of this page, you have the trainers and you can access their information and enter it in all from here. All right. Now, with that being said, the other thing here, and we typically see this mostly used for tracking the commissions they get for trainings and classes and lessons like we just went through, But there's also the option, if we go back to service specific here, for if they sell something. So if we look back in here, right, we see sales commission and flat commission. So if you fill in, let's say 20% here, and Brandon McManus goes ahead and sells a package plan, he will get 20% of that sale. And you could also enter this in the same thing as over here. This would just be a flat rate. So if you give them credit for selling, you have that option here as well. You can also set up for a membership that they may sell as well. So definitely go through that. You have these options here. For a membership, be very careful with two things. Number one, make sure you choose the respective type. This goes by the types, not necessarily the plan, so be careful with that. But then down here, same thing. This is your percentage. This is your flat rate. And if you check off first contract only, that means the first, if you sell, let's say, a monthly membership, Brandon will get credit for that first month of the membership he sold. When it hits the second month and the third month and so forth, he's not getting credit for that. So be really careful with this. If this is unchecked, getting credit for every single month going forward. So just be careful with that. You have these options here. All right. So beyond the setup here with service specific and your location and trainer setup, if we go into the schedule, right? So we see, for example, here we have Brandon McManus over towards the left. And if we actually scroll towards the left, we see that, okay, looks like a client, Dave Grill here, booked in. It was for personal training of 1 hour. Now, here's the thing. Dave Grohl tells us here that he is marked in as attended. If the client is marked as attended, it will then count that towards the commission this trainer should receive. However, if he's just marked as scheduled, for example, you will see that counted, saying that, okay, Brandon McManus had a training with Dave Grohl, it's marked as scheduled, but that will mark the commission for him. So they have to be marked as attended, so be really careful with that too in order for them to receive credit. All right. But let's say we do another one here. So let's say at 11, right? He's offering another personal training for 1 hour. So we'll click in here. We will treat this just as a normal booking. We'll hit the drop down. We'll enter in personal training 1 hour. We'll verify the time change. We'll hit save and add clients at the bottom. All right. And in here, let's just say we enter in one of our test clients. So Mike Messina is going to book a personal training here. Now, this is a refresher from the first two calls, but remember, if you're selling a package while you book someone in, just simply hit new package on the right. All right, and it will redirect you here where you can go ahead and sell a package plan. So let's say Mike Messina thinks we'll be doing quite a few trainings down the road. So we'll sell him this personal training for 1 hour. It's a 20 pack, and we'll select it on the right. All right. If you have a document tied to the package plan, it will ask you to sign for it here. So we'll just acknowledge that there. But from here, once again, treat it the same way. We would hit finish and pay. For the record, if we were giving this trainer credit for selling a package plan, you can hit sold by here and then mark in that trainer so they receive credit for it. So you do have those options here. I'll put that in for the example. Keep in mind, if you were selling these, or I'll put it this way, actually, if you were allowing the memberships and packages to be purchased through self-service, there isn't a way for a trainer to get credit for it. I know sometimes a trainer maybe will refer someone to the self-service site they want to receive credit for it. They cannot be entered in on self-service. With that being said, after it is purchased, you can always update it after the fact on the client's profile. But be careful with that there. So we'll go ahead, we'll hit save and finish. All right, we'll load us to the invoice, where we'll go ahead and mark in the $200 payment. We'll mark this as cash right up here, and we'll take the payment. All right, so we see this package is paid for. When we hit done, brings us back to the schedule. And in here, we simply see we have personal training for 1 hour. Over towards the right, you'll just hit this package to book them in, and it tells us client Mike Messina was registered successfully. All right. So we now see, we go back towards the left, we have 1 1 hour training here with a client booked in as attended. We then have another training here where the client booked as scheduled. So what I would like to show you guys now is we'll go to the report. I just want to show you the difference, essentially what you'll see with a scheduled client versus one that's marked as attended. So we'll go to reports here. I'll put this in a new tab. Right, and actually it's right here in the dropdown, but the trainer report for tracking the commissions is right here in the financial reports. You have it, should be somewhere near the bottom of the financial section here. So we'll click on this. Now, when we jump in here, you have to choose a trainer. You can choose a specific one. You can choose all of them if you want to, whatever you feel most comfortable with. We'll just go with Brandon for this example though. All right, and then we have a start date end date here. We'll just leave this for today just to load in those two examples. Now from here, we'll go ahead and hit generate report. All right, now when this loads up, one of the first things will be shown is a bar graph, which we see right here, right? And as we scroll further down, we start to see a simple layout here for their commissions. So in here, we see session pay, meaning this is the commission they're receiving from any sessions that have been booked and paid for. And we see on the right side right now, the total amount they're receiving is just $20. All right, but further down, we now see why that is. So we see Dave Grohl is in here, right? It booked into a personal training. We see that the invoice was paid for. And since he was marked as attended, it is counting that commission for Brandon here. Hence why he receives the $20. Underneath that, right, we'll see he got credit for selling a package plan there. I don't believe we put a price in for that. So that's why we're not seeing that part of the balance there. But as we go through here, like I said, we're not seeing the session that was marked as scheduled. We see it's counting that he had a scheduled session, but until they're marked as attended, it will not count the commission here. So be careful with that. Make sure you mark them as attended. Technically speaking, if they are marked as a no-show, that would count as well. A no-show obviously would be if a client books themselves in, but all of a sudden they just simply do not show up. If you mark them as a no-show on the calendar here, it still counts as them using their session. They don't get that back. It still counts as, hey, you booked in, you've lost this session. If you want to book something else, please go ahead and just use your next session in that package plan, or go ahead and purchase a new package plan with another session. So be careful with that here. And since we're in here, we go to Mike Messina now. As far as how you can mark the client as attended, you have two ways of approaching this. So if you simply hit the drop down here, and we switch it to attended, that would be one way you can count that. The other route you can take is if we go to check-in up here, and we'll go to staff check-in for the example. If we enter in Mike Messina here, right, we'll enter his name, check him in. All right, so typically speaking, this session for Mike Messina was for 11 a.m. So it is afterwards, but normally if they book a session for 11 a.m., maybe they get there 10:30, 10:45 just to get their warm up, maybe whatever it might be. But as long as they check themselves in at the front desk to the facility before their session begins, it will automatically mark them as attended, as we see down here. He purchased a 20-pack of 1-hour training sessions, so it tells you he now has 19 sessions remaining. Even gives the layout down here. He purchased 20, he scheduled one. Even though he may not have completed that session when he booked in, it hasn't started yet. When you see it marked as completed, it just simply means they were marked as attended. That's all that means there. And we simply see he has 19 sessions remaining here. All right, so they check in. If we simply refresh the schedule here, we now see a line through his name here. When you see a line through their name, that just simply means they've been marked as attended. So you have two ways of doing it. The check-in is probably the simpler route and the easier route because clients can walk up, they just scan themselves in. It will take care of it for you. You, of course, have the manual route if you need to maybe override something or make a fix to something on the calendar. All right, and if we go back here and we hit this refresh icon is on every report. So you can just click on this to refresh it simply. Right, so now we see something different. We now see, okay, we have 2 sessions attended. The session pay is 40, right? We see a total of 40 down there. That's what the trainee receives. And we see down here that he's been marked in, Mike Messina as well as attended. So now he receives credit for that session as well. All right, so main concern, main focus for getting the commissions in is making sure you mark the not the trainers, you mark in the clients as attended, and making sure that the trainers have their respective fees and commissions set up accordingly in the system. All right. And if we jump out of here, go back to your reports, if you look in something like a revenue report, you'll of course see the commissions loading in there, so you can still track what they should receive through that. But the whole benefit of this, of course, it tells you what they receive and what sessions were with each specific trainer. So this is your best friend for tracking commissions. Just be careful with that. The other one in here is salesperson commission report. This is not used as often, but for some context, if you didn't really have trainers at the facility, maybe you just had a training department where they just focus on selling memberships, getting clients signed up as a member, selling them packages, then you would just look in here. So this is just for the trainers on the calendar. This would be just if they're selling and not booking trainings and taking care of those clients themselves. All right, so definitely focus on this report here. And if you go to administration, you go to packages and package plans. So for those of you, and like we have on the calendar here, in this case, we have about 4 total trainers at this facility, right? So something you may want to consider from time to time, if each trainer is charging a different amount for their sessions, then simply create different package plans here for each trainer, right? For example, this could say a reservation type of personal training 1 hour, but then in the description, you put, okay, 20 pack of trainings with Brandon McManus or John Doe, right? So you can always enter in specific package plans for each trainer. You could also treat it as a reservation type, where in here, we maybe say, okay, personal training with Brandon, and now we can assign a package plan to each reservation type. So you can control these how you see fit, right? If they're different prices, the trainers charge different amounts and fees for their trainings. But if it's the same fees regardless of no matter what trainer they go with, but maybe just each trainer gets a different amount as far as their commission, then you can create more general baseline packages and just make sure you attach them appropriately to each trainer. All right, so that is your setup here. Do you guys have any questions on how that would be set up? Leave some time for any questions here. All right, while we do wait for any questions to load in, just as I always like to do as a reminder, if you simply go to easyfacility.com, over towards the right side here, you have resources. So hover over this and click on events and webinars. And you can always go in here and just take a look at the archive webinars you've done in the past. I can say as of right now, the next webinar we'll be doing, although we don't know the exact date yet, that will be entered in today. The next webinar will be reviewing how we utilize the Zoom feature in the system as some more guidelines start to come down because of COVID. I know New York City just announced that they may be closing some areas soon, but we will be going over the Zoom feature. That way, if you do have to close your facility because of COVID or any guidelines, you're able to do some virtual classes or virtual training. So we will review that soon, and we'll then be going over some billing information as well down the road. Okay, when I click on service specific and enter a percentage, I get an error screen when I hit add rate. Okay. Okay, so Sherry, if you are on a specific trainer, you went to service specific. So just make sure when you enter in the rate, make sure you click on add rate. The enter button does not typically work very well with the software here. But make sure you just simply click on add rate. That could also be popping up if you have 2 different rates in here, one a percentage, one is a flat rate. Could potentially maybe give you some more info. Is the error saying something specific? Is it popping up at the top of the screen? is the screen with the red box that says error. Okay. Okay, so I don't know if it's giving you any more info than that, but if it's giving you an error there, try contacting the support team. There might just be something in the back and they have to switch. But overall, any errors you would see in here could be because you're not hitting add rate. If there's two different rates in here, one flat rate, one percentage. Overall, though, you may want to contact the support team. Could be something else that's preventing that as well. All right. Any other questions you guys had? No problem, Sherry. Any other questions you guys had here? All right. And while we wait for any more questions, we'll jump in. I will point out one other thing. I wouldn't say this happens very often, but it is a possibility. So I know there are some times where maybe there's a large group training or a large group fitness class you're offering that, let's say, Ken and Matt Barzil are both hosting together. So if that was the case, you can enter it in and they will both get commission. But for example, if we put in that, if let's say Ken and Matt both do a personal training with 1 hour, they're working with a few different clients there at the same time. If we put in that they both receive $20 for completing a 1 hour personal training, it will simply cut it in half. It will give Matt Barzil $10 and will give Ken Morrow $10 there as well if they're both at 20. So I don't see that very often, like I said, but that can be done. Just be careful with the prices you put in. And for example, if they should both get 20 regardless, then for that particular group training, make sure you enter in $40 so that they would receive 20 if they do it together. So be careful with items like that. It will cut it in half if you put them together. And same thing if you put all three of these together, all four of these together, it will cut it in half or break it down accordingly, and it will calculate that amount for you as well. All right. So if there's no more questions at this time, once again, guys, definitely set up your commissions in the system. Once again, your main two focal points are make sure you have your trainers on the calendar and making sure they have their specific rates entered in for their specific sessions or lessons that they offer, any classes they may host. Once again, our next webinar we'll be doing will most likely be on the Zoom integration, just to go through how you guys can do virtual sessions or classes or lessons from home or from your facility if things start to close down again. And definitely go to our website. We have all of the prior webinars there. Those are really great to use for any staff you have that they need to review the software. Definitely have them look at those webinars. And you, of course, as always, have our support center here in the top right, where you can type in some questions at the top here. You have our support team for the US and the UK. And we even give you some topics down here, how-to articles, online videos, onboarding for those of you that have gone through training. These are typically the steps you follow when you go through our training. So feel free to look through these here. And if you need to contact support, you have the US number up here as well, like I said, but down here at the bottom, you can hit contact support to submit a ticket. And if you need to request a training, follow this link here, simply just request your trainer. All right. So everyone, as per always, a great pleasure working with all of you here today. If you have any questions going forward, we are always here to help. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I hope you all have a great holiday coming up as well. Take care.